I would say he's had some accomplishments in trade, had some wins, but the trade war with China has been devastating. It's been very hard on agriculture. From renewable fuel standpoint, it's been the support has not been there that we had hoped for.
So a lot of the policy things, it doesn't. People say, "Oh, it was all Trump's fault." This predates Trump, and when Trump came in, it did not necessarily improve, but I think he at least was trying to do something. That's the one thing that I think some people in agriculture were excited about Trump, is he finally talked agriculture. We've been so neglected for so many years from politicians.
I feel like this is
flyover country is the term people use. And Trump comes along. He's the first president in our lifetime to basically talk specifically agriculture.
Why we're picking between two septuagenarians for president, you know, there's got to be better choices out there. So I won't vote for Trump again. The policies that he's put in place and the trade wars that he's started have done nothing but hurt, you know, rural America. You know, he can claim otherwise in every soundbite opportunity that he gets, but the bottom line is the only thing he's done for us is give us a bunch of subsidies to support his poor policy decisions. I think it'll still be closely contested in some of the more rural areas. People are just detached from what they're voting for. I myself don't understand how anybody in the Midwest thinks Trump relates with them and is for them. He would have never set foot in our state or Iowa or Illinois if it wasn't for a presidential election.
Vaughn joins me now from Blanchardville, Wisconsin, which, if I could see correctly from the hats there, Vaughn, is Burr's country. What is the president's message to farmers in rural communities like the one where you are?
Allison, the president is not naive to how crucial farmer support is to him here in 2020. Look at 2016. I want to give you an idea. We're here in southwestern Wisconsin. When you look at the 2012 presidential map, most of these counties here, these rural counties, farmland countries, went blue. Trump turned those numbers around in 2016, and that is why you saw him again today in North Carolina, making a direct appeal to farmers, contending that he has benefited the ag economy. Of course, his statements were littered with falsehoods, suggesting that China, for instance, had paid $28 billion to farmers. But in reality, that was paid by U.S. companies importing Chinese goods, and it was paid out in the form of subsidies from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to make up for the very losses that the U.S. ag economy saw because of those very tariffs that the Trump administration imposed, as well as those retaliatory tariffs from the likes of China and even our allies Mexico and Canada. And that is where these farmers are so crucial, because you hear the president trying to make that sales pitch that he has helped the ag economy. At the same time, you know, in talking with farmers, as you just heard some of them there were some slight concessions, for instance, for the dairy economy coming out of Canada. But what these farmers have largely seen is a very volatile ag economy. They have seen the price of their commodities fluctuate up and down. And over the course of these last 4 years, we have consistently heard farmers say that they want expanded markets, and they want those markets to be understood that American ag products can be accounted on. But what you have seen now here, just 3 months out from the election, is concern among a great share of farmers of whether the Trump administration is able to offer that, Allison.
Mostly peaceful protests in Charlotte ahead of tonight's Republican National Convention, though police were forced to break up a crowd last night and arrested at least 5 people. NBC News correspondent Morgan Radford joining us now from Charlotte. Morgan, tell us more about the protest there today.
Yeah, Allison, this is a tense scene here. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina, just blocks away from where the RNC convention is. You can hear a lot of yelling in the background. Please forgive it if you hear any profanities. There are protesters here who are part of the organized resist RNC protest. It began about 4:30, but you can also see there are now counter protesters, and they're facing off. The counter protesters have signs that are shooting, excuse me, sir. Yeah. They have signs here that are saying things like, "America, you need to bless God." And so they are fighting. They're arguing. We saw a few scrabbles kind of break out in the crowd. But then beyond that, you can see this increased police presence, police here on bicycles. But I want to show you something else here. If you look over here, this is how the protests was intended to initially look, Allison. You can see this is the Resist RNC protest. There are speakers who are taking the podium. And they had a permit to be here all week. But this is the energy. This is the tension that we're seeing now on the fourth night of consecutive protests. But I want to show you something that one of the organizers told us just moments ago when we asked what they believe the perception of these protests were, not only here in Charlotte, but around the country. Take a listen.
When I see those videos, I see police committing the violence. Just flat out. There have been well over 1,000 incidents of police violence since since they murdered George Floyd, and including the one in Wisconsin last night where they shot an unarmed black man 7 times in the back at very close range.
Now, Allison, these organizers say that they don't believe in what they call the divisiveness of President Trump's rhetoric. They say it has no place here in Charlotte, and they don't believe it's the vision to lead the country. And they say they're here today to make their feelings and their presence known. Allison?
Morgan, speaking of their presence, what is police presence like throughout Charlotte? And are you expecting more demonstrations tonight, tomorrow, throughout the week?
Yeah, I have to say, Allison, it's striking, especially when you're looking at clusters of police like this. The police presence has been amped even when we were here entering the city last night. If you compare to something like 2016, it's similar. You're seeing barricades. You're seeing this increased police presence all throughout Charlotte in this area. But when you think about the fact that there were only about 400 party officials here in 2020, and yet it merited the same level of police presence, nearly what we saw back in 2016. So that kind of tells you something. And what they're doing is they're really understanding.
I want to say we will not be silenced.
And that's why you're here today.
We will not be caged.
And you're
never.
Here. Can you tell us why you came today and why you decided to organize?
Because I'm tired of seeing people get killed in the streets. I'm tired of being brutalized by the police. That's why I'm out here.
May I ask your name?
I'm not giving my name.
She doesn't want to give her name, but she says that's the kind of energy we're seeing here today. They feel like they're against police brutality, and they're also here for social justice. Allison?
Right, Morgan Radford, in the heart of the protest there in Charlotte. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely.
The RNC was originally supposed to be in Jacksonville, Florida. That's DUVAL County, which President Trump narrowly won back in 2016. As part of our County to County series, NBC News Now correspondent Dasha Burns asked voters in Jacksonville how they're feeling heading into this election.
I think the safest and best thing for the Republican Party is a Biden win, because then there's something important to rally around. But if you get Trump for another 4 years, I think it could ultimately be the downfall.
It doesn't really matter whether it was Trump or Pence or pick any Republican that could fill that seat. We're voting on such different mentalities in America these days that anybody could be in that seat. I'm just going to vote for smaller government, safer streets, backing the police, keeping our border secure, less government, and more individual freedom and more individual liberty.
It doesn't resemble the party I joined, and I'm hoping that this is a reset kind of election. Well, I'm going to support Biden. You probably saw when you came in a Republican for Biden sign.
I firmly believe in 2020 that there are a lot of Republican voters that may not necessarily be as open about what they're going to vote for, but are going to be casting their ballots for Joe Biden, because I think that the last 4 years of what they expected that they were going to get from the Trump administration has not been what they want, and that Joe Biden is offering them an alternative to bring this country back.
Dasha joins us live from Jacksonville, Florida. Dasha, we heard from some voters there. How do folks feel there about losing the RNC?
Hey, Allison. Well, this area has been hit pretty hard by the economic fallout from the virus and by the virus itself. And the business owners that I talked to said it's been a big loss. One of the small business owners that you heard from there, actually, Ed Malin, he said that the RNC would have been like the Super Bowl in terms of the boost that it would have given this economy. But interestingly, he also said that in a way he was a little bit relieved that it wasn't coming here because of the political divisions in this county that he felt like it might exacerbate. And look, Allison, there is a reason that the president has been focused on Duval County. He won it by such a narrow margin in 2016. And locals in Florida say the farther north you go, the more south you get, meaning that this area has been traditionally conservative. North Florida is how Republicans win elections. So that narrow victory in 2016 was a bit of a red flag. An even bigger red flag, though, was in 2018 when Democratic gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum took this county, which sent shockwaves through the GOP. It was a first since 1980. So this area has seen some shifts that could pose some headwinds for Donald Trump. The suburbs here, they are growing. They're becoming more diverse, more college educated, and that could spell some problems because this is the sort of demographic that he's been having some trouble with. Though, of course, he still has a pretty strong base of support here, and there are plenty of Republicans I talked to here as well that said, look, I may not like what he says or what he tweets, but it's better than the alternative. Allison?
Dasha, you've been traveling the country ahead of the November election. How does what you're hearing there in Jacksonville stack up against some of the other counties you've been visiting?
Yeah, it's so interesting you asked that because I was pretty struck when I spoke to some of the voters here. I heard a couple of things that made me think I was having deja vu with what I've been hearing in a county pretty far away from here, Kent County, Michigan. It may surprise some viewers because of the geographical distance, but you're seeing similar trends in both of these places, particularly in the suburbs that are diversifying. And both areas have this slice of the Republican electorate, these more moderate sort of Chamber of Commerce Republicans who say that they don't really recognize the Republican Party as it is today as the party that they joined and that they grew up with. And it was striking, Allison, to hear almost the same words come out of people's mouths here as I heard in Michigan. But as I mentioned before, there is still a lot of support for Donald Trump here. And I spoke with the GOP county chair who says that even though the RNC didn't actually happen here, the infrastructure that they were building out in preparation for it is actually going to be incredibly helpful to them. He says they've really built up their ground game. They've added thousands more volunteers as a result of that preparation for the RNC, and he thinks that could be pretty influential in getting more voters and really beefing up the ground game ahead of November. Allison?
Dasha, it has been fascinating hearing from voters in every county that you visited so far, this time in DUVAL and Jacksonville. Thank you so much for sharing their point of view.
We've got more coming for you. Don't worry.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.